Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and there is some important news to talk about. It's been a good while since I think I have sat down and just talked about speculation and news and all this other stuff, but this is kind of a big deal, and I want to get back into doing that because I know a lot of you people enjoy it, especially because, let's be real, I come in with all the best facts. But in any event, I apologize for the fan in the background. It is later in the day in Texas, which means it's extremely hot, so I hope you can all put up with that in the background. But in any event, let's go ahead and talk about all of the news that's coming out today for the Wood Elves, because we have had it 100% confirmed that the Wood Elves are featuring as the next big thing for Total War Warhammer, which is of course super exciting news and has a ton of important suggested details in that. I think we can actually glean a pretty surprising amount of I think that Creative Assembly showed a surprising amount of their hand with this update. I don't really think they needed to go quite as ham as they did in telling us what's coming. I'm really glad they did, because I am someone that always prefers to have more information to make a larger speculation than less information where you're just waiting and then all of a sudden it just drops on top of your head. Granted, that's just my personal preference, but, you know. Anyway, so really excited, and let's dive in. So the first thing is that they have absolutely confirmed that Wood Elves are the next DLC for Warhammer 2. It's a Lord pack. It focuses on the Wood Elves, and it says it's going to be the Wood Elves versus one of the original core races from Warhammer 2. So this is basically us going back to... this is... Man, that's so interesting, because that this literally seems to mean that for the second wave of Lord packs for Warhammer 2, I think the Dark Elves versus Skaven is going to be the only one that was a Game 2 versus Game 2 DLC. All of them outside of that have been Game 1 versus Game 2. That will always bother me. That is such a weird... I don't understand how that happened. But let's focus on the positives today. So we know it's Wood Elves versus somebody from Game 2. And basically what they're telling us so far is that if you just own Warhammer 2, you'll get the Lord pack, obviously, which will give 2 new Lords, each with all of the usual, and they will be available in the Eye of the Vortex campaign and Mortal Empires and custom multiplayer stuff. Also, there's going to be a awesome free hero for everyone in Total War Warhammer 2. However, I think it's important to draw attention that nowhere in this do they say a awesome new Wood Elf hero. They just say an awesome new hero. Hopefully, I'm really curious what this could be, honestly. Because the Wood Elves aren't really missing a hero. I don't think this is for the Wood Elves at all. I mean, the Wood Elves have a couple hero options, but I don't think this is going to be the Wood Elves. It's probably either going to be... Well, we'll get into that later. We'll just keep that in mind. So it's likely that either the opponent of the Wood Elves or somebody related to the Wood Elves, or just a random faction is going to be getting a new hero character. So that's worth keeping in mind. Next thing is that if you own Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2, you're of course going to have massive updates to the Mortal Empires campaign. Knowing the way they've been doing this, there's probably going to be some kind of base change of some sort to the Mortal Empire world, with the Wood Elf campaign is probably going to get completely reworked, and we're probably going to see a lot more new territories. That seems to be a common theme, is that every time they've been releasing something, some part of the map gets a big update. You know, with the Empire versus Lizardmen, we saw the Empire get overhauled. With the Skaven versus the Dark Elves, we saw the Far East get added. And then in the most recent one, the High Elves versus Greenskins, we saw the Badlands heavily overhauled and a lot of Skaven added across the planet. So a lot of really interesting. That is, I think, a just complete toss-up. And then it says, okay, so that's it for that. Yeah, so reworks for the Wood Elf factions and some general Mortal Empire updates. So hopefully bug fixes and maybe a couple of content fixes. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then last but not least, if you own all of that and you have the Realm of the Wood Elves DLC pack from Game 1, you get a bonus free Legendary Lord. And they say it's a her, which is actually super telling. That actually narrows the possible entries for the Legendary Lord significantly, especially because you have to have the Realm of the Wood Elves DLC pack. So it's almost assuredly, well, it's probably almost guaranteed a Wood Elf character, and we know it's a singular she. So that cuts down the potential list significantly. And then basically they're just saying why they're doing that, and then they just kind of clean up this here. So if you have Warhammer 2, you get the free LC hero, which is so and so this pretty much locks it in for me. If you just own Warhammer 2, you're going to have access to the free LC hero. That means it's going to be a base race character for Warhammer 2. So it's either Skaven, Lizardmen, High Elves, or Dark Elves. It's going to be one of those. So we'll talk about that. And then you get 2 new Legendary Lords, one of which is Wood Elves and one of which is a mystery faction. Wood Elves will be added to the Vortex campaign, which is fantastic. Then if you own Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, and you get the DLC, you of course get the new Wood Elves, and all the Wood Elves in the Mortal Empires will get a campaign update, which is awesome. And then lastly, if you own all of that and the Realm of the Wood Elves DLC from Game 1, you will get a mysterious new character. Plus a new Wood Elf Legendary Lord and new units and new characters. So this isn't just a free LC Lord. This is a free LC Lord who probably has their own faction and gimmicks. Because it says they're going to have new units and new characters. That's kind of interesting. Alright. And they say they're announcing it pretty soon. So that's really exciting. And then we got a look at some new artwork for the Wood Elves. Which, this, I mean, this could literally be anything. This could be the Oak of Ages. This could just be a random glade. Who knows? So, and we don't care about the other stuff. Alright, so let's talk about what I think everything is and my evidence to support it. So the first thing we need to talk about is the free LC hero. So we know it's for a Game 2 base faction. So that narrows it down to 4. We know it's a hero, and it's probably related to who the enemy faction for the Wood Elves is going to be. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just shoot the High Elves right out of the sky. The High Elves just got an update with a ton of stuff. I think it would be borderline bloat if we saw the High Elves again so soon. So High Elves are out of the race. Lizardmen, I'm going to go ahead and... Lizardmen are a possibility, but let's just focus on the free LC hero right now. I don't think the Lizardmen have anything left in the hero category that you could see as a free LC hero that would be interesting. So Lizardmen are out. Because the only hero the Lizardmen don't have is a Croxagore hero, but I feel like that would be part of a DLC, not a free LC. So let's shoot that one out. That leaves us with Skaven and Dark Elves. Now, it's been an equal amount of time since we've seen either of these guys. So that's pretty interesting. And I feel pretty confident saying it's probably one or the other. Now, I could easily see Dark Elves or Skaven fighting the Wood Elves. I would note that it makes more sense to me. It makes the most sense to me that if the Wood Elves are going to fight anybody, it's going to be the Skaven. The Skaven are probably the race of those 4 that has had the most wars against the Wood Elves, and they have battled numerous times, and the Wood Elves like, of all the times the Wood Elves have ridden out to help Bretonnia against an invading army, most of the time it's been Skaven. For whatever reason. Like, when Chaos invades, the Wood Elves almost never help. If it's, like, Greenskins, they don't help. Like, if it's Beastmen, maybe they help, but not in, like, the last 1,000 years or so. But Skaven, oh yeah, they come out for Skaven all the time. There have been many, many, many times that the Wood Elves have helped the Bretonians against the Skaven. So I could and the Skaven are kind of one of the biggest threats to the Wood Elves because they don't invade through conventional means. They invade from underneath the Forest of Athel Loren and, like, eat away at the roots. So, which is really problematic. So I could easily see the Skaven being the main antagonist. So if the Skaven are the antagonist of the Wood Elves in this Lord pack, and they're getting the free LC hero, then we're looking at, okay, what is a hero option for, or let's look at both of them, but we'll start with the Skaven. Who is a Skaven hero that would be a really cool addition for all of the Skaven factions that doesn't need to be tied to, like, wait, if they're doing, we know, so another thing is, if it is Skaven, it's Throughout the Unclean. Like, it's not even, that's so painfully obvious, it's not even funny. Just because they've already told us in, prior Reddit AMAs, they have flat out said Thanquol will be in Game 3. So we know that Thanquol is in some kind of DLC, well, he's probably going to be free LC, but Thanquol is somewhere in Game 3, which means that we are looking at the only possible Skaven thing left is Clan Molder. That is literally it. We've done a DLC for every single major clan except for Molder and Pestilence. And the only thing missing from Pestilence is the Cauldron of 1,000 Poxes, which would be a really cool free LC thing, but that's like a war machine / monster, not a hero. So, if you're looking at Clan Molder as the DLC focus with Throughout the Unclean, then a good free LC hero for the Skaven would be Chieftains. The Skaven Chieftain is, of course, the melee hero of the Skaven heroes that's meant to be tanky, you know, have a lot of armor, be more of a leadership bunker. So it would, which is kind of something that, I don't know if Creative Assembly just didn't like the design of the tanky / leadership focused hero going into Game 2, or if they just, because there's so many factions that have that kind of hero, and they basically got passed over and over and over again for so many factions. You know, where it's like the Greenskins didn't have one for the longest time, the Skaven don't have theirs, the oh gosh, there's another faction, it literally was just in my head and then it just popped right back out. Oh, the Dark Elves didn't have the Master, the Wood Elves don't have the Glade Captain. Like, there's, like, that's probably the least used hero. And I think that's just because they tend to come off as a little generic, but I'm glad that that seems to be changing. So with the fact that we just got the Black Orc Big Boss as a free LC hero, who, you know, it was a much, much requested ad, I honestly think this is the Chieftain. I think that makes the most sense. The Skaven Chieftain would be a really nice addition to every single Skaven faction in the game, because it would give you a tankier hero with armor, not like the Assassin, so someone who's meant to be on the front lines, a little more holding the line. Maybe he could bring some kind of cool mount with him. He probably won't have a mount, to be honest. As much as I would love there to be the War Leader, I don't think they're going to do a War Leader, at least just yet. So, we're probably looking at the Skaven Chieftain. That's my prediction for the free LC hero. Because if it was a Dark Elf, what are the Dark Elves missing? They've got the Sorceress. They've got the Master. We've got... You know what I need? I need my handy dandy... I need my handy dandy cheat program. Because I don't want to have to grab my books. Let's see. Dark Elves. So, we've got the Canine Assassin, we've got the Death Hag, we've got the Master, and we have everything. We've got everything for the Dark Elves. So, yep. Okay, so yeah, I feel super confident on that. I think this is the Skaven Chieftain. So that's my prediction. The free LC hero is the Skaven Chieftain. The only other options at this point for a Game 2 race are the Kroxigor hero, the Lothern Sea Helm hero for the High Elves, which is like it's basically like the sister or the Handmaiden, but not armor piercing, and probably more focused on leadership stuff and with different mount options. But without a Lothern Skycutter, the Lothern Sea Helm doesn't really have access to anything that would make him stand out. So that seems like a big no. And then the only other thing for the Skaven would be a Packmaster or a Master Molder, one of those. So like either a Packmaster or a Master Molder type guy. But if you're gonna do a Packmaster or Master Molder hero, then that should be a part of the Clan Molder DLC, which I think is who the opponent is for this Lord pack. So yeah, I'm calling it now. I'm calling my shot. Skaven Chieftain is the free LC hero. Then, 2 Legendary Lords, units, mounts, and the ability to play as Wood Elves using this new Lord. So, we know... Well, okay, let's come back to that. And then the last one, if you own the Realm of the Wood Elves and Games 1 and 2, you get a free LC Lord who we know is a lady. So let's talk about who that could be. The Wood Elf characters missing from the game who are women are singular women. So Sisters of Twilight are out. That leaves us Queen Ariel, the Queen in the Wood. Very, very strong option. Queen Ariel is, of course, the large butterfly lady that she's kind of like Orion. You know, he's the King of the Wood, she's the Queen of the Wood. But where most factions in Warhammer or Total War Warhammer have their big bad, so their character who is the most important from a narrative standpoint, being Tyrion and Teclis, Malekith, Lord Mazdamundi, Queek Headtaker, all these characters who really feature as and if you read the stories about those races, excluding Thanquol, Queen Ariel is probably the biggest missing character. Because many people may think that Orion and Ariel are equal. That is not the case. Ariel is the boss. Queen Ariel is the monarch of Athel Loren and the Wood Elves. There is nothing above her. Orion is below her, as far as I'm concerned. Orion needs his wife's permission to do things. And if he wants to do something and she tells him not to, he's not going to do it. There has never been a time where Ariel wants something to happen and Orion just refuses or does something different. They have fought and argued about things. There was the time they invaded Nagaroth to get revenge on Morathi for some shenanigans, and Orion wanted to kill Morathi. Orion just was she's a black-hearted witch. She's evil. She taints the world. We should kill her. But Morathi offered Ariel, "Hey, I'll teach you dark magic," and Ariel chose to spare her in exchange for that knowledge and power, which ended up being a bad decision. Which, big surprise. But Ariel totally gainsaid Orion, and they argued about it. But there has never been a time where Orion has superseded his wife. Where the reverse has happened many times. So I could easily see this being Ariel. Another option is Drycha, which if you've been watching my Heroes of Legend series here on the channel, one of the videos, I've been doing a series where I go every race and I talk about characters who I think should be part of a new DLC pack that I want Creative Assembly to do, called Heroes of Legend, where each pack would come with 4 or 5 legendary heroes, one for different race. So each race would get one over the course of these packs, and each pack would come with a handful of them. And I've been doing a series proposing who I think would be the best representative. And when we talked about the Wood Elves, I go really, really ham on Drycha as one of the options. So I feel really confident, but she could also work really well as a legendary lord. I mean, there have been a ton of characters who have been upgraded to lords from being heroes. Granted, I think Drycha has a lot of overlap with Durthu, so I think she's one of the weakest options, in my opinion, but I could see it. I still think Drycha would function better as a legendary hero, but, you know, there's an option. And then the last option that I feel is a real possibility is a character called Nyeth the Prophetess, which Nyeth the Prophetess is essentially among the spell weavers of Athel Loren. She's like the most important one by far. Nyeth the Prophetess is a super big deal character who is basically the most powerful caster and the most gifted prophet, obviously, among the Wood Elves, barring Ariel herself. And so the question there becomes, well, Ariel is more powerful and kind of a bigger deal than Nyeth, but Ariel to me is also a lot more like a Lord Croc type character, like and a Green Knight type character. Like Ariel makes a lot better sense, in my opinion, as a legendary hero who every single Wood Elf faction could have access to, whereas Nyeth the Prophetess easily fits a legendary lord slot. Like, she is a really, really badass elf. There's a little bit of lore. Well, sorry, there's a lot of lore on Nyeth, but as far as like what she looks like and how she would function in battle, most of that is super outdated. So Creative Assembly would have a lot of freedom on how to interpret that character, which I think is a strong point rather than a weak point, especially for free LC Legendary Lord. If there's one thing I've noticed is that typically the free LC Lords tend to be characters that are either not as well defined, or they are characters who tended to be heroes that have been upgraded to lords. And I don't know like the science behind that, but I could kind of see it. Plus, they state that this new Wood Elf Legendary Lord would come with new units and characters. And to me, Nyeth the Prophetess actually fits that in a really interesting way, because with Nyeth, I could see us getting Spellweaver Lords, which are the wizard lords for the Wood Elves that aren't tree spirits. So, you know, I would really, really hope that instead of Queen Ariel, I would love to see Queen Ariel as a hero so that she could be taken with any Wood Elf faction. Because, like, especially if you're playing Orion, like, if I can have Queen Ariel in the game, I want Queen Ariel in my army with Orion. They should be able to be taken together. I hate the Isabella Vlad system. And that's something I'm going to be making a video on soon, is that Isabella von Karstein needs to be changed to be a legendary hero for Vlad. That way you can run them together in the same army. I'm going to be doing a big thing on that, but that's not the point of today's video. So for this, I feel that Nyeth the Prophetess would probably be the strongest possibility for a new Legendary Lord. You get Nyeth the Prophetess, she comes in with the Spellweaver Lord, and then for her new units, the Wood Elves aren't missing a lot. Actually, they're not really missing anything. I mean, if we look at their 8th edition roster, the Wood Elves are missing literally nothing, to my knowledge. Yeah, no. The only thing they're missing are, like, Lords and Hero options. So, like, the only heroes we're missing are the Glade Captain and the Shadow Dancer. So, like, I could see either of those coming with Nyeth the Prophetess. And the only Lord we're missing is the Spellweaver. So, I could see that. But for units, I don't know. Maybe, like, the only thing I can think of the unit category, they could do, like, Zotes, which are aligned with the Wood Elves pretty hard. Like, the Zotes are these really ancient reptilian creatures that live in all the forests of the world, and they're, like, the best life casters because they've been around for Lord knows how long. They seem to be an Old One race, but they seem more on par with the Slann as opposed to, like, the Elves. And the Slann know about the Zotes, but the Zotes are who the Wood Elves, like the Spellweavers, they are who the Wood Elves go to to like truly master the lore of life. So I could see the Zote being like a unit as like kind of maybe like a casting monster or something. Granted, it's like the size of a dragon ogre, so it's not like truly monstrous size, but you get what I mean. I could see maybe they could do sprites somehow, or spites, sorry. Spites, which are these little like fairy creatures, but they're like the really scary kind of fairies, like from really old, our world's old historical myth. Like they're these little, they're like really spiteful, mischievous little things that are, some of them are nice, but most of them are complete jerks. And they will like lead you to your death, and they could travel in like little swarms and stuff. So maybe they could do something with that. I don't know what else. Like, I mean, we're missing great stags as a mount option, so maybe they could give us great stags as a mount, but then we could get like a feral great stag unit. Yeah, I don't know. For Wood Elf units, they're gonna have to be digging deep, my dudes. Like, they're gonna be needing to go back to some really old editions, or looking at, like, some White Dwarf magazines, or, like, reading the books for, like, just little itty-bitty lines or paragraphs about super nebulous creatures, and just, like, full-on upgrading those to, playable units. So it's probably going to be some stuff that's going to be kind of wild. And maybe some CA original units. You know, it might be stuff like the, it might be things like the Sacred Croxagors or the Depth Guard, you know, which are, those aren't things. Those units didn't really exist in Warhammer Fantasy. Like, those weren't things. Those were things that Creative Assembly invented to fill out rosters. So I could see that being the case. It's going to be really, really interesting, though. So, I think my predictions so far are the Skaven Chieftain as the free LC hero. I'm going to go with Nyeth the Prophetess for the free LC Legendary Lord. And then for... just because I don't want Ariel to be a Lord. Like, I could totally see the argument for Ariel as a Lord, but I am desperately hoping they don't do that again. I thought the way Lord Croak was implemented was beautiful, and I need more of that in the game. So I'm gonna hope that Ariel is either not coming in this pack, or to be a legendary hero for the Wood Elves later, or I hope she is just a full-on Lord Croak type character as part of the Old World update for Wood Elves. And then... who do I think the DLC is? Well, I've already told you I feel really confident in Throt the Unclean, and I'll do a video tomorrow going over everything I think Throt's going to come with. I think it's Throt for sure. The only other thing I could think is I think High Elves and Dark Elves are totally out. I don't think it's going to be High Elves or Dark Elves. Dark Elves is a possibility, but I hate the idea. So I don't even really want to like speculate about it because I hate it so much. But like I guess they could do Dark Elves, and it could be like, it could be what's his face, Executioner Man. Oh gosh. Talaris Dreadbringer. Like, it could be Talaris Dreadbringer, maybe going crazy, and like attracting the... But I don't understand how the Wood Elves would play into that at all. I know there's a lot of people who like that one Beast Lord guy that was important a few editions ago, but kind of got pushed out of the lore. Because I think he's like the only important character from like the city of Har Kaldra or something. Or Clarond, I forget which city it is. But, like, so it could be that guy, and, like, maybe he's trying to dominate the forest somewhere to get new monsters? I feel that's super weak. But, like, Throt the Unclean, I could see the Wood Elves trying to kill Throt. Throt's a pretty big deal, and is a pretty scary character. God, I love Throt. Please be Throt. High Elves, nope, we just got them. They're not going to do that back-to-back, I don't think. Granted, we have had back-to-back before with the Lizardmen. but I don't. High Elves versus Wood Elves would be the dumbest thing in the universe, and there is nobody in the High Elves left who I think would make a good opponent for the Wood Elves. The only potential Lord options left for the High Elves are like Sea Lord Island, which that makes no sense, and Caradryan also makes no sense. So nope. And then there's the Lizardmen. The only characters the Lizardmen don't have represented who could be legendary lords are Oxyotl the Chameleon Skink and Teto Echo the Skink Priest. So I just don't see it. I don't see it in the it's gotta be two characters who would have a reason to fight. Like, but Oxyotl, you know, he's more like a demon hunter or a hunter of evil creatures. So, like, I could see Oxyotl being like a forest or jungle themed character, but fighting Wood Elves? No. Nope, sorry, I can't see it. I can't see it. And that only leaves the Skaven, because I think they played their hand a little too early and told us that, you know, it's game 1 or a game 2 race. I honestly thought for sure that everybody was on with Wood Elves versus Beastmen, but honestly, I'm really glad they're not doing Wood Elves versus Beastmen, because I don't know how the free update would have worked. Like, if you did that, would you be doing the Wood Elf update, or would you be doing the Beastman update? I don't think you can do both at the same time, because they need massive overhauls. So personally, I feel really good that they're doing this one first, because I think Wood Elves needed it way more than Beastman did. The Beastman campaign is kind of bland, but it's playable. I think the Wood Elf campaign is a nightmare. So I'm really glad Wood Elves are getting attention first, because they need it. They need it the most. I'll say it. Like, I even think the Warriors of Chaos campaign is more playable than the Wood Elf campaign. And I literally just went through a Wood Elf campaign. But anyway, so that's my prediction is Throt the Unclean and Clan Molder versus the Sisters of Twilight. I don't have a reason for the Sisters of Twilight other than they're my favorite character. For people who want to know all the options, I'll do a video on that the day after tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to do Throt the Unclean, and then the day after tomorrow I'm going to do like Wood Elf Legendary Lord options. But I think the only options for Legendary Lords at this point are the Sisters of Twilight, Erloth, which Sisters of Twilight are twin sisters who are vaguely, sorta, kinda Ariel's adopted / actual daughters. One represents light, one represents dark, so they're like a yin and yang kind of design. And the cool thing about them is that they're monstrous mount characters. So while the two of them are archers and close combat fighters, they could be taken on their Great Eagle friend as a mount, or they could ride their dragon, which I think the Great Eagle is named like Gwendol something, and then the Forest Dragon is named Sinithar, which the Forest Dragon is super cool. Sinithar is a really cool character. So I'm really hoping it's the Sisters of Twilight, because I think the Wood Elves could really use a cool character who's all about like monstrous mounts. But you also have Erloth, which Erloth is basically just like this super badass regular elf who is like the booty call for Lilith, the goddess of prophecy. So he's kind of like the Wood Elf version of a Grail Knight. He's not like supernaturally powerful, but he is supernaturally brave, which I know sounds dumb, but his story is pretty cool. Though Creative Assembly would definitely need to update his character a bit, because in tabletop he was pretty terrible. Because he was like unbreakable, but he couldn't join units, so he would just, or no, he could join units, but if he was in a unit, he like didn't get some of his special rules. It was dumb. Anyway, so it's either Erloth, who's just like a regular Wood Elf fighter, the Sisters of Twilight, who are archers and also ride monsters, Drycha, who we've already talked about, Naiath the Prophetess, who we've already talked about and I think is the free LC character, and Ariel, who I don't want to be a lord. I think those are the only realistic choices for Legendary Lords. So, anyway, I hope that was enough to get all the gears in y'all's brains turning. We'll see how good my prediction game is. So, we got Skaven Chieftain, Throt the Unclean versus Sisters of Twilight, and Naiath the Prophetess as the Legendary Free LC Lord. So anyway, I hope you all have a great day. Like I said, I'll talk about Throt tomorrow and his faction and like what could be done there. And I'm going to talk about all the Wood Elf characters across the rest of the weekend and maybe the following week. But this is super exciting. I'm really glad that we're already trucking towards the next DLC. Hopefully it's really good. I hope they're not rushing themselves. Like, I personally, I super duper hated the 6-month wait time between DLCs. I much prefer like the 3-month schedule, but I hope that they're not prioritizing speed over quality. As much as I really enjoyed the Warden and whatever the most recent one is, Grom versus Eltharion. As much as I enjoyed that, there was a lot of bugs. There was a lot of bugs that are still being fixed. Like, that was one of the buggiest DLC patches. The DLC itself I thought was pretty okay, but like Mortal Empires got super jacked up by that. So hopefully they take enough of their time to make sure everything's quality. Any event, that's going to be me for today, my dudes. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Might come on to live stream later tonight and talk more about this, but until then, take care of yourselves. See you later. Bye.